no, we would like to remind everyone lang of our webinar guidelines. Ma'am Jury? So far, medyo dumadami na po yung mga participants natin dito sa Zoom, and we are expecting to start formally by 9 a.m. So, yan, before lang mag-start, we just like to remind you of some of our guidelines for this event. So while waiting, may I ask yung mga participants natin, where are you currently located? Where are you attending this event from?
Meron din tayo sa FB Live viewers.
Oh, I see. Thanks, Sir JR. And I think we're also live in Facebook pala. So hello din po sa mga nanonood through Facebook. And thank you for joining us in this very special event. Yan si Ma'am Angelina from Quezon City. Hello, ma'am. Good morning. We have Sir Romel from Malabon. There we also have from the summer capital. Tama ba? Baguio City. We have Ma'am Marilyn from Albay. Let me check if I could share it on my end instead for a while. Chen, as we are about to begin today's event, we would like to remind everyone of these guidelines. Please ensure that you have a stable internet connection and do change your participant name into the following format. Your institution comes first and then your name. For example, CBRC Virgo Lopez. And please mute your microphone during the conference unless instructed by our guest or moderator. Also, while we encourage you to turn on your cameras, we do understand that it might affect the bandwidth of your connection. So enabling the camera or video is optional. And you could also maximize the chat box for your comments, questions for our participants from the Facebook pages, the Master Journal, and the Carl Ibalita public figure. You can use the comment section to send in your comments, your questions, your reactions, especially later on as we will have the research presentations from our different researchers from different institutions. And yeah, please observe other webinar netiquette. Siguro pinaka-last na lang din na reminder is just for you to sit back, relax, enjoy, and let's all together learn from this event. Thank you so much and see you again shortly.
research. What do people think about it?
Research is boring.
I don't think it's necessary.
I agree. I just did it out of compliance.
It's complicated. A waste of time.
Did you know teachers are expected to conduct action research at least once a year?
You can earn CPD units through research.
Research can help address chronic school problems.
You can learn how to deal with your students.
Or improve your methods of teaching.
You can transform the world through research.
You're right.
So what should I do?
You can start by reading the Maestra Journal.
The information age makes available for us a wide repertoire and reservoir of knowledge which are dangerous unless we're able to critically identify and evaluate so that we can only choose which of these actually matter. This is why research is vital not only for the teachers but also for the learners of this 21st century. Because research will ensure for us through a process, a scientific process, that what we are teaching and what we are learning are actually valid and reliable. The Maestra Journal is a response to the challenge of making available for the researchers a platform for them to disseminate the knowledge that they have derived through quality research works. The Maestra Journal will also make available for the lifelong learners many researches and other expression of creativity through creative works and some inspiring feature stories written well by our contributors.
A breakthrough in scientific knowledge through research.
Professional journal for, by, and of teachers.
Features significant articles about creative works, research studies, and inspiring stories of teachers.
Inspire various professionals in the academy.
Contributes to knowledge development applied in seeking truth and facilitating learning.
If you are a lifelong learner of the 21st century, you must grab a Maestra Journal today.
What are you waiting for? Improve the teaching profession through research. Grab your Maestra Journal now.
Got it now!
Recording in
keeps
progress.
me alive in a sense is really
Recording
teaching. When you have this great chemistry between the teacher and the student, when that atmosphere is created, and then you have this wonderful dynamic relationship, not just adding new knowledge and facts, because you get that from encyclopedias, you get that from even from the cell phone, but reflections, ways of looking at phenomenon, ways of looking at reality, new perceptions. Sabi ko, kung makabukas lang ako ng several more windows in your eyes and in your minds, then I would feel very, very happy. I always treat my students as my friends, and we are on this journey of learning, of new knowledge, of additional information, of analysis, and we do it together, then that's the best that can ever happen. Especially if you change lives. Parang holy mission. Yan, para sa atin, as I said, when you influence them, that's the greatest satisfaction one can ever have. The most important value, of course, is honesty. It's truth, and making sense out of truth. Teaching is noble in the sense that you touch lives, you change them, and kaya nga the greatest teacher, many of our most important and most loved humans are teachers, and if you are called teacher, it's really very touching. You have to recognize change, accept change, understand change, and respond to change. learning is continuous, lifelong naman eh. You never stop learning, you never stop reading, you never stop learning new insights. I'd like to be remembered as perhaps the oldest Secretary of Education, but with the youngest ideas. My message to the teachers is, I have always talked about change, about many things changing in our lives, but what should not change is the commitment to teaching. The joy of teaching, the satisfaction of teaching, it's truly, literally the noblest of all professions, because you touch the lives of people, you change their lives, and we should never forget that.
Sa mga pipiliin niyong senador, maaari niyo bang isamang isang Dr. Carl Balita, nurse, midwife, lisensyadong guro, doktor ng edukasyon, doktor ng humanities at entrepreneur guru, ang mabuting balita ng kalusugan, karunungan at kabuhayan. Muli po, Dr. Carl Balita, number 6 sa Senado.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, magandang umaga, maayong buntag sa ating mga kasamahan sa advokasya ng education, research at specifically sa research in education. I am Vernie Glujuntilas Marias, moderating this event live from Misamis Oriental. And again, I would like to thank everyone for joining us in this event. Before we formally start our program this morning, I would like to acknowledge our distinguished guests gracing this event. We have the Maestra Journal publisher, Dr. Carl E. Balita, former DepEd Undersecretary and our keynote speaker, Dr. Lorna Digdino, members of the Maestra Editorial Board headed by our Editor-in-Chief, Dr. Virgo C. Lopez, today's research presenters, Mr. Edwin Connell, Mr. Marvin Melendres, Miss Grace de la Cruz, Mr. Jonathan Wong, and unfortunately, Mr. Gary Mosquito won't be able to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Maestra Journal virtual launching of its latest issue, Recover and Revitalize Education Through Research and Innovation. And we would also like to welcome our education students who are joining us in this event. And what a better way to start this program than with a prayer and the singing of the national anthem.
Let us feel the presence of our Almighty Creator through the gift of life that we continue to enjoy. Through the past, present, and the future that makes life wonderful. Heavenly God, we praise your omnipotence, we trust your omnipresence, and we believe in your loving heart. Grant that our hearts be filled with love, our heads be nurtured with wisdom, and our hands be molded to care as we journey through this life. May your blessing be showered upon our lives so that we may fulfill our mission to serve our life purpose, and so we may achieve our vision of becoming close to you. Make me an instrument of your love, a messenger of your peace, a steward of your creations, and a gift to humanity. Grant our wishes so that through them we become more equipped to serve you and others. Guide us, be with us, enlighten our minds, touch our hearts, and guide our hands. Bless our loved ones, our families, our world. All these we ask through our loving Creator. In the silence of our hearts, let us pray for our personal intentions. Amen.
Bundok sa simoy at sa langit mo baba, may nilalang pula at awit sa pangalan minamahal. Ang isla kang patawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdinigdig, ang bituing ng araw niya kailan pa may pag-ibig. Lupa ng araw-araw, kahit ang sita mo'y langit sa piling ko. Ang ligaya na pagkay mag-aakit, mamamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Maestra Journal started with a vision, a dream of someone to provide teachers with a platform, a journal to publish their researches. And now the Maestra Journal is already on its third year of publication. And to give us his welcome address, let's greet with our warmest virtual applause the man behind the Maestra Journal, our publisher, the visionary leader, Dr. Carl E. Balita.
I think Dr. Carmel, nasa campaign. Possible survey.
There. So at the moment, my current engagement lang si Dr. Carl Balita. So may we proceed now to the keynote speech of our former DepEd Secretary, Dr. Lorna Dig Dino. A big round of applause, please.
Good morning, everyone. At the outset, I'd like to say congratulations to the Maestra Journal team and also the prime movers of the launching, the virtual launching for the latest issue of Maestra Journal, Volume 3, and that is Issue 1. As we all know, research and innovation are very, very important. We cannot make decisions unless our decisions are informed decisions. We need data. We need current researches. And of course, when we say innovate, as far as education is concerned, there are so many things that we have to consider. What other things can we do better? How else can we do things better? Even along lesson preparation, so choice of strategies, the development of teaching learning resources, student assessment, even along learning delivery, and even along different support systems for curriculum and instruction. So for instance, instructional supervision. There are so many areas that we have to look into so that we'll be able to know what is best. So how else can we really be able to innovate so that we will have better teachers, improve teaching quality, and we'll be able also to improve our learning outcomes. So, congratulations, researchers. Congratulations for the support of people behind these researchers. And so, thank you. And congratulations again. Hopefully, your researches will not stay in the shelves of libraries, but will really be able to be used to improve our situation in the educational system for basic, especially for basic quality education. Again, thank you. Stay safe. God bless everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was former DepEd Undersecretary Dr. Lorna Dig Dino, reminding us that decisions, we cannot make decisions if they are not informed decisions, and that research could really help us improve teaching quality and learning outcomes. And to give our appreciation to Dr. Lorna, we would like to give this certificate of appreciation. Ma'am Joanne. So if I may read the citation on our certificate. Certificate of appreciation is given to Dr. Lorna Dino for being our keynote speaker of the Maestra virtual launching of its latest issue, Recover and Revitalize Education through Research and Innovation. Signed by Dr. Carl E. Balita, our publisher, and Dr. Virgo C. Lopez, our editor-in-chief. Once again, let's give Dr. Lorna our warmest virtual applause. In line with Dr. Lorna's reminder that research could really help us improve our practice, we do have some research presenters to us on different relevant and timely researches they've done in their respective institutions. To begin with, let's start with our first. Let's start with our first research presenter. If there. Thank you so much.
Good day, my name is Edwin
Presenting to
Iconel from
us
the UP.
the effect of experiential reflective teaching on secondary school students' pro-environmental consumer behavior. We have from UP Integrated School, Sir Edwin B. Connell.
Good day, my name is Edwin B. Connell from the UP Integrated School, and today I will present to you my research entitled The Effect of Experiential Reflective Teaching Approach on Secondary School Students' Pro-Environmental Consumer Behavior. The Philippines is the country that is most vulnerable to the impact of environmental and natural disasters. According to the DepEd curriculum, the environmental education in the Philippines is incorporated in the elementary and secondary curriculum, but is taught in chunks and dispersed across grade level. Also, the Philippines had participated for International Social Survey Program in conducting environmental surveys for 2 decades, yet there is no clear study conducted on the empirical analysis of social survey program data for environmental attitudes and behavior. Locally, there were researches on experiential reflective learning with focus on environmental concerns have not been frequently studied. According to Google Trend, 67 out of 100 respondents are interested in experiential learning, while 4 out of 100 are interested in reflective learning. Thus, merging the experiential and reflective learning as alternative method may enhance the students' pro-environmental consumer behavior. The independent variable consists of the two approaches, namely the experiential reflective teaching approach and the conventional teaching approach. The dependent variable is the pro-environmental consumer behavior, which consists of 3 components, namely product information, recycling, and waste reduction. Specifically, this study aimed to answer the following questions. First, does the group exposed to experiential reflective teaching approach have higher mean post-test score in pro-environmental consumer behavior than that of the group exposed to conventional teaching approach? Second, what are the students' perception on experiential reflective teaching approach? For the methods of this study, starts with the research design, which is the quasi-experimental method. The participants involved consist of 54 grade 7 students from 2 heterogeneous classes. And the research instrument consists of the pro-environmental consumer behavior scale with a Cronbach alpha of 0.790. This indicated that the instrument is valid and acceptable. For the data gathering, permission letter was obtained from the school head and subject coordinator. Then, pilot testing was done in grade 8 students since they have the idea about the topics and environment. Then, orientation was conducted to the two sections which were used in this study. Class observation was also done, and intervention was conducted for 6 weeks. For the data analysis, statistical package for social sciences were used and was set at 0.05 level of significance. Also, ethical considerations was maintained. For the comparison of the teaching approaches, the only difference between the two approaches indicate that the experiential reflective teaching approach uses experiential activity and analysis of the environmental issues through written or oral reflective practice, as compared to the conventional teaching approach, which uses the group and oral discussion about the topics on environment. For the results and discussion for question number 1, does the group exposed to experiential reflective teaching approach have higher mean post-test score in pro-environmental consumer behavior than that of the group exposed to the conventional teaching approach? Looking at the data on the independent t-test of the CTA or the conventional teaching approach and the ERTA or the experiential reflective teaching approach in pre-test mean scores, it was noticed that there is no significant difference between the pre-test mean scores of the two groups. This means that the two groups are comparable in terms of their pro-environmental consumer behavior prior to the intervention period. Now, looking at the effect of the experiential reflective teaching approach on pro-environmental consumer behavior on their post-test, it was indicated that there is no significant difference between the mean scores of the two groups, where T is equal to 52.080 and the p-value is 0.936 before and after the treatment period. So some of the reasons are the following. First, it is attributed to the effect size. Since in this study, only 27 participants per group were assessed, and the d-value of 0.02 represents a very small effect size. Also, according to Adjen in 1991, increased knowledge alone does not help in changing behavior. Also, according to Hirsch and Terlau in 2015, there is what we call as the attitude behavior gap, referring to the disconnection between what the attitude says versus what the behavior does. So it appears that the purchasers or the consumers are hesitant to invest and shell out money to put their beliefs into practice. This also means that individuals with a positive outlook on the environment do not necessarily translate the attitude toward the product purchase. Also, according to Ting in 2017, most people possess environmental knowledge and awareness, but they often regarded the pro-environmental behavior as less important, hence lack of action in green practices. Also, according to Monroe et al. In 2000, behavior in general is supported by knowledge and attitude, but there is no direct cause and effect progression from knowledge to attitude to behavior. Here is the result of the comparability within the group scores on the pro-environmental consumer behavior. It was indicated that there was a significant improvement in the pro-environmental consumer behavior of the students exposed to the conventional teaching approach and the experiential reflective teaching approach group. So the result of pre-test to post-test differences within the group found that students' pro-environmental consumer behavior increased after receiving the experiential reflective teaching approach. Now, looking at the paired sample t-test of the CTA and ERTA in pre-test and post-test mean scores in every component, it was noticeable that in product information, the post-test mean scores of both groups had improved, but no significant difference. This supports that age ranges from 13 to 16 years old consumers fail to connect between reading the product labels and buying. So product information without encouragement and proper instruction could lead to lack of knowledge about the product. So that's why we always check the label. Next, in terms of recycling, looking at the results, so there is a significant difference between the mean scores of conventional teaching group and experiential reflective group. In school where the study is conducted, waste segregation is already part of the values incorporated in their learning and teaching. Hence, the value of reduce, reuse, and recycle had improved. In the component of waste reduction, looking at the data, the post-test mean scores of both groups had improved, but no significant difference in the experiential reflective teaching group. The statistical findings suggest that only the conventional teaching students had a significant change in the waste reduction part. And these are the summary of the findings of components of the pro-environmental consumer behavior in CTA and in ERTA in terms of components. Now for the question number 2, so what are the students' perceptions on experiential reflective teaching approach? On the experiential learning, it boosts fun and creative learning. So according to the students who were interviewed during the course of this study, they mentioned that through group activity, they learned to cooperate with their group mates. They were able to work independently and had fun in doing the activity. And it gave them the motivation and excitement to learn the lesson. On letter B, it activates the retention and participation in the class. According to the students, so they were able to listen to the teachers attentively, and they were excited to recite in class discussion, as well as they were able to ask the teacher in order for them to clarify about the lesson on environment. On the reflective learning, letter A, it allows the student to have the self-expression and self-assessment on the lesson. So the students interviewed said that the essays and the journal writing enabled them to share thoughts and ideas that were not mentioned during the group activity. So through the reflective learning, they were able to review the lessons by recalling it while writing. So the journals also becomes a diary for them, which allows them to review the lessons and serve as an outlet to reflect about the lessons taught in the classroom. And letter B, it increased environmental awareness. So according to the students interviewed, the environmental lessons allowed the students to segregate the waste in school and in the house properly. And the waste segregations and recycling were encouraged and strengthened. Also, according to them, it allows their knowledge to broaden and also allows them to protect the surrounding. As the conclusion of the study, so based on the results, the following conclusion was drawn. So the experiential reflective teaching approach enhanced the students' pro-environmental consumer behavior in earth science topics, specifically the environment part. Also, it yielded a positive appreciation on recycling. For the recommendations for the science teachers, they may conduct a curriculum review to investigate the reason behind the awareness in pro-environmental consumer behavior of students. And for the curriculum developers, they may integrate different scientific practices using interactive materials in the science programs. And for the future researchers, they may carry out a comparative study on the pro-environmental consumer behavior in a public and private high school. They can also lengthen the study period, as well as they can cover students from junior high school and senior high school. So these are the references of my study. So once again, thank you very much for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Sir Edwin Connell from UP Integrated School on his study on the effects of experiential reflective teaching on secondary school students pro-environmental consumer behavior. So for sure, madaming nakuha yung especially yung mga earth science teachers natin, but also those teachers who wish to integrate, green or pro-environmental topics in their subjects, their respective subjects inside their classrooms. So thank you, Sir Edwin. Edwin. And next, we have there. Our next research presentation is entitled Exploring the Role of Corrective Feedback Preference on the Senior High School Students' Metacognition and Critical Thinking Skills by Mr. Marvin Melendres from Congressional Integrated High School.
Greetings to the participants of this symposium and to Maestra Journal organizers. I am Marvin Melendres from Congressional Integrated High School, and I will be presenting my paper entitled The Effectiveness of Action sa Migrasyon Program on Underachievement and Low Adaptability of Learners with OFW Parents. Parental involvement is vital to school achievement. However, the continuous increase of overseas Filipino workers, or OFW, threatens parental involvement at home and at schools. Underachievement and poor adaptability are one of the results of parental migration. Evidences show the impact of migration to school performance and adjustment. Schools, however, should aim to improve students' achievement by providing opportunities that will allow students to develop an adaptability process. Likewise, there should be an intercultural approach in schools wherein school personnel provide policy interventions for OFW children. Having said that, intervention program for learners with OFW parents is imperative to solve these issues. Statement of the problem. Number 1, what is the level of underachievement and adaptability of experimental group before and after the implementation of Action sa Migrasyon program? Number 2, what is the level of underachievement and adaptability of control group before and after the implementation of Action sa Migrasyon program? Number 3, is there a significant difference between the adaptability level of experimental and control group before and after the implementation of Action sa Migrasyon program? And number 4, is there a significant difference between the underachievement of experimental and control group before and after the implementation of Action sa Migrasyon program? Presented on the screen is the conceptual framework of the study. The participants were divided into two groups. Group A, the experimental group, and Group B, the control group. Group A will be exposed to the Action sa Migrasyon program, and increase in achievement and adaptability are expected as the outcome of the intervention, while Group B, the control group, will be exposed to the traditional homeroom guidance program. Hence, underachievement and low adaptability is expected to still arise after the intervention program. The study employed an experimental research designed to answer the hypotheses of the study. Experimental design was used to test the effect of the program on underachievement and low adaptability of learners with OFW parents. Internal validity was prioritized through careful selection and distribution of participants into two groups, the control and the experimental group. The participants were carefully selected and assessed using a multi-stage sampling technique. In the first stage, the research population was identified through an inclusion criteria. In the second stage, a sample of 40 were randomly selected from the population of 47. And in the third stage, the participants were equally divided into control and experimental group. Adaptability scale by Martin 2012 was used to measure the adaptability level of the participants, while the NCAE results and the quarterly grades were used to measure the underachievement among the participants. Action sa Migrasyon program, developed by the researcher, aims to alleviate underachievement by improving the achievement and adaptability among the target students. Action sa Migrasyon program is consisted of 5 modules: self-awareness, self-efficacy, time management, stress management, and resilience, and bridging the gap awareness on migration. Pre-test and post-test design was the primary method used in the study. Presented on the screen is the data gathering procedure of the study following the pre-test post-test research design. In the pre-test, the adaptability level and the underachievement scores were determined, and then after that, Action sa Migrasyon program and traditional homeroom guidance program were implemented. After that, post-test was implemented using the same measures as given in the pre-test, and then data analysis and the data interpretation. In the data analysis, to test the hypothesis, the following measurements were used. Frequency, percentage, and mean was utilized to establish the demographic profile of the participants. The test of difference for dependent groups was used to compare the means of two groups to determine the significant difference between the mean scores of two sets of data in problems 1 and number 2. The test for difference for independent groups was used to compare the means of two groups to determine the significant differences between the means of scores of two sets of data. It was used in problems 3 and number 4. Table 1.1 shows the underachievement level of the experimental group before and after the implementation of Action sa Migrasyon program. The achievement scores presented in the table were generated upon comparing the participants' aptitude scores and school performance during the first and second grading. It was observed that the level of underachievement during the first quarter was higher than the consecutive quarter in experimental group. Specifically, among all 3 subjects, English gained the highest level of underachievement score, while science gained the least. Table 1.2 presents the pre-test and post-test scores in adaptability scale. The participants' level of adaptability during pre-test and post-test manifested moderate adaptability level in reference with the adaptability scale by Martin 2018. Moreover, the standard deviation denotes homogeneity of adaptability of mean scores within the experimental group in pre-test and post-test. Thus, it was observed that the adaptability level, mean scores within the experimental group, increased after the implementation of the Action sa Migrasyon program. Table 4 shows the underachievement of experimental group decreased after the implementation of Action sa Migrasyon program. The test of difference for dependent sample results revealed that there is a significant difference between the pre-test and post-test scores of the experimental group. Hence, parental involvement in self-regulated learning positively affect the school achievement and adaptability of learners with OFW parents. Table 1.4 shows the results of the paired t-test for dependent samples to measure the effect of Action sa Migrasyon program on the adaptability of the experimental group. Hypothesis testing indicated a significant difference between the pre-test and post-test adaptability level scores of the experimental group. The result implies that the program increased the adaptability level of the participants in the experimental group. The results agree with Chu Si Yang et al. Found that students' academic difficulty and adaptability can be resolved by focusing on attitude, study strategies, external support, and coping with difficulty. Table 2.1 shows the underachievement level of the control group before and after the implementation of Action sa Migrasyon program. The achievement scores presented in the table were generated upon comparing the participants' aptitude scores and school performance before and after the implementation of Aksyon sa Migrasyon program. It can be seen that the level of underachievement of the control group increased after the implementation of traditional homeroom guidance program. Table 2.2 presents the pretest and post-test scores of the control group in the adaptability scale. The control group scored higher in the post-test than in the pre-test. Hence, the use of traditional homeroom guidance might have helped in increasing the adaptability level of the control group. Table 2.3 shows the results of t-test for paired samples to determine the significant difference within the control group. There was no significant difference between the results of the underachievement level prior and after the implementation of the traditional homeroom guidance program in the control group. Table 2.4 shows the results of paired t-tests for dependent samples to measure the effect of the program on the adaptability level of the control group. The control group's adaptability level in second quarter is greater than the first quarter. Using t-tests of difference for independent samples, it appeared that there was no significant difference between the pre-test and post-test scores on the adaptability scale of the control group. The results implied that the traditional homeroom guidance program was not effective as an intervention for underachievement and adaptation. Table 3 shows the results of the t-test for the independent samples that tested the effects of the program on the adaptability levels of both groups before and after their exposure to Aksyon sa Migrasyon program. Prior to the implementation, the computed t-value was less than the critical value at 0.05 alpha significance level. It means that there was no significant difference between the adaptability levels of both groups before the implementation of the program. After the intervention, when the computed t-value was compared to the critical value at 0.05 level of significance, it was revealed that still there was no significant difference between the adaptability scores of the participants. Null hypothesis is accepted. Hence, results shows that the Aksyon sa Migrasyon program was not effective in increasing the adaptability level of the participants. Table 4 shows the comparison between the underachievement mean scores of the experimental group and of the control group. In pre-test, using t-test of difference for independent samples, when the computed t-value was compared at 0.05 level of significance, it appeared that there was no significant difference between the underachievement level of the two groups. It means that participants were equally divided in terms of the underachievement scores prior to the implementation of the program. After the intervention, when the calculated t-value was compared to the critical value at 0.05 level of significance, the results showed still no significant difference between the underachievement levels of both groups. Hence, null hypothesis is accepted. Aksyon sa Migrasyon program shows non-significant effects in the underachievement level of the participants. Based on the data presented, the following conclusions were derived. Number 1, Aksyon sa Migrasyon program was significant in decreasing the underachievement level of the participants within the experimental group. The results revealed the effectiveness of the program in improving the adaptability level of participants within the experimental group. Number 2, Aksyon sa Migrasyon program was not effective in decreasing the underachievement of learners with OFW parents. The decrease of underachievement within the experimental group gained little significance when compared to the control group. Lastly, Aksyon sa Migrasyon program was not effective in increasing the adaptability of learners with OFW parents. The increase of adaptability within the experimental group was insignificant when compared to the control. Here are the recommendations of the study. Number 1, future researchers could further explore on the characteristics of OFW underachievement among students with OFW parent. Likewise, the scope of the research can be extended to all underachievers of CIHS. Also, researchers could include on teacher-related factors that contribute in the alleviation of underachievement among students with OFW parents. This would provide more reliable and more accurate results of the study. Number 2, educators as well as counselors could further explore on underachievement and adaptability by testing its relationship to other concepts like resiliency, buoyancy, motivation, grit, and parental. Lastly, since it was found out that there was significant difference on the underachievement level of students within the experimental group, the researcher recommends the use of the Aksyon sa Migrasyon program in doing further research. Thus, variations in the implementation in terms of duration of exposure to treatment and different methods of implementation is strongly recommended to get better results. That's all. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can find me at my email ad presented on the screen.
And yes, just a correction, the title of the research presentation by Mr. Marvin Melendres is The Effectiveness of Aksyon sa Migrasyon Program on the Underachievement of Low Adaptability of Learners with OFW Parents. Again, that was Mr. Marvin Melendres from Congressional Integrated High School. Up next, we have research from the Mimaropa. And that was the research title I read earlier. Exploring the role of corrective feedback preference on the senior high school students' metacognition and critical thinking skills. I'm right. By Miss Grace De La Cruz and Jonathan Wong of Romblon State University. A big round of applause, please.
Good day, everyone. In behalf of my co-researcher, Dr. Jonathan P. Wong of Romblon State University Romblon Campus, I am Grace M. De La Cruz, a secondary school teacher from Romblon National High School Division of Romblon. We are glad to share with you our research study entitled Exploring the Role of Corrective Feedback Preference on the Senior High School Students' Metacognition and Critical Thinking Skills. For a short background, feedback plays an essential role in the teaching and learning environment because it provides learners with information intended to help them improve their learning. According to the study of Ferguson, feedback is considered a vital approach to facilitate students' development as independent learners to monitor, evaluate, and regulate their learning. Many studies have been conducted regarding the positive effect of providing feedback, but still limited as far as its link to other aspects of students' learning, such as metacognition and critical thinking skills. Metacognition is an essential skill in critical thinking and self-regulated lifelong learning. Metacognition helps students become independent learners. This is also a widely studied subject, but still other studies are encouraged to enrich the literature on this particular variable. Critical thinking is a prominent topic at every level in education. Researchers predicted critical thinking as one of the biggest challenges in the 21st century education, and educators should actively integrate critical thinking into their teaching. For this reason, studies on development and enhancement of critical thinking is encouraged. For this study, our objectives are 1. Determine the corrective feedback preference of senior high school students in terms of timing, mode, source, quality, and frequency. 2. Determine the level of metacognitive level of awareness of the respondents in terms of knowledge of cognition and regulation of cognition. 3. Determine the level of critical thinking skills of the respondents. 4. Determine the significant difference in senior high school students' metacognitive awareness, classified according to corrective feedback preference. 5. Determine the significant difference in the critical thinking skills of the senior high school students, classified according to corrective feedback preference. 6. Determine relationship between corrective feedback preference and metacognitive awareness of the senior high school students. And the last, determine the significant relationship between corrective feedback preference and critical thinking skills of the senior high school students. This is the research paradigm of the study. The corrective feedback preference of students served as the independent variable, while the metacognitive skills and critical thinking skills served as the dependent variable. For the research methodology, the research design is non-experimental. This study is descriptive correlation in nature. We have used stratified random sampling in the selection of the respondents. The data collection method is survey with questionnaire as a primary tool in gathering the data. The statistical tools used are percentage, mean, median, chi-square, t-test for independent sample, and Mann-Whitney U. As for the results of the study, most of the respondents preferred delayed feedback, orally given feedback, feedback from the teacher, feedback stated positively, and receiving feedback sometimes. Majority of the respondents have high level of knowledge of cognition and regulation of cognition. Majority of the respondents' critical thinking skill level is within the range of below average. As for the difference in the metacognitive awareness level of the respondents, there is variation in the respondents' metacognitive level of awareness when they are grouped according to corrective feedback preference in terms of mode and quality, which partly disconfirm the null hypothesis, stating that there is no significant difference in the senior high school students' metacognitive awareness classified according to corrective feedback preference. With regards to the difference in the respondents' critical thinking, there is no variation in their critical thinking skill level when grouped according to corrective feedback preference, confirming the null hypothesis. Another findings, corrective feedback preference in terms of mode and quality emerged to significantly correlate to students' metacognitive awareness, which did not support the null hypothesis. And last, corrective feedback preference according to timing, mode, source, quality, and frequency did not significantly influence their critical thinking skill, confirming the null hypothesis. Based on the findings, here are our conclusions. 1. Delayed given orally, teacher given stated positively, and given sometimes are the most common corrective feedback preference of the senior high school students in the District of Romblon. 2. Respondents have high metacognitive awareness level as regards to knowledge of cognition and regulation of cognition. 3. Senior high school students' critical thinking skill in the District of Romblon has not reached the standard level where most of them have below average score. 4. Those who prefer oral and positive corrective feedback show a higher metacognitive awareness level compared to those who prefer written and negative feedback. 5. Respondents show a similar level of critical thinking skill regardless of whether they prefer delayed or immediate feedback, oral or written, given by the teacher or peers, positive or negative, given always or sometimes. 6. The way corrective feedback is given, either orally or written, positive or negative, can significantly influence their metacognitive awareness level. 7. Their critical thinking skill is not dependent on their corrective feedback preference. For the implications of our study, 1. This study highlighted the importance of various corrective feedback preference in connection with metacognitive awareness, thus giving much implication to the way teachers provide corrective feedback to students' performance. Teachers therefore are encouraged to deal with their corrective feedback in a way that it will enhance not just their students' academic success, but also their metacognitive awareness. 2. The study likewise implied that critical thinking must be given emphasis in all learning areas, and that teachers are strongly advised to look into this particular skill and find ways to develop it. For the recommendations, 1. The DepEd authorities and teachers may consider using varied strategies to improve the students' critical thinking skills. 2. Teachers may consider giving corrective feedback that students mostly preferred. Further study may be conducted, preferably experimental type, to validate further the effectiveness of that selective corrective feedback in a local setting. The result of the study may be forwarded to DepEd authorities for possible intervention, particularly on the aspect of critical thinking skills of the students. And similar study may be conducted involving other variables to widen the scope of the study. That's all. We hope you learned something from our study. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless us all.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Miss Grace De La Cruz and Sir Jonathan Wong on their study exploring the role of corrective feedback preference on the senior high school students' metacognition and critical thinking skills. It's just really unbelievable how much we have learned in a span of just an hour. And it's amazing to see how these researchers were able to grow in their teaching practice as they were able to see what works and what doesn't work in their respective projects. And it's more amazing to see how much collectively we are also growing as we are learning from them through their publication and them sharing the findings of their researches. So to show our appreciation and gratitude to the hard work of these teacher researchers, we would like to present this certificate of appreciation. So let me read the citation. Certificates of appreciation are given to the following research presenters for imparting their knowledge as research presenters during the Maestra Professional Journals Volume 3, Issue 1, Virtual Launching with the theme Recover and Revitalize Education through Research and Innovation, given this 26th day of February 2022. Signed by Dr. Carl E. Balita, our publisher, and Dr. Virgo C. Lopez, our editor-in-chief. We have Certificate of Appreciation for Edwin Connell, Mr. Marvin Melendres, Ms. Grace De La Cruz, Mr. Jonathan Wong, and yes, Mr. Jonathan Wong. Thank you so much for imparting your expertise and your knowledge. So let me just ask our participants before we move on to the next part of our program. Are we learning ba? Madami ba tayong nakuha from the researches? Yes, we have Sir Norman from Xavier University. Yes, he was also one of our writers, by the way. And by the way, he is still an education student currently studying. So we are really inviting not only our teachers, but also our education students. Come and join Maestra, publish your works, present your researches so that individually we could grow in our teaching practice, but as a community, we will also learn from one another. Thank you so much. We are getting an overwhelming yes from everybody. At this point, to present the latest issue of the Maestra Journal, let us all welcome the very, very hardworking and dedicated editor-in-chief of the Maestra Journal, Dr. Virgo C. Lopez. A big round of applause, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sir Bernie. I would like to appreciate your good moderating skills for this day. As usual, we can count on you and our technical team. And we would like to greet everyone, our researchers, our educators, fellow teachers, our students, and our research enthusiasts from all across the country. And also we have, if we have international friends out there. All right, so on behalf of Dr. Carl Balita, I would like first to introduce to you our ever-working and dedicated members of our board, editorial board and staff. And I can see right now as well, some of our board of reviewers I have seen a while ago, Ms. Jennifer Palaganas, Dr. Migno Del Morales, and the rest who I failed to mention. But here, magandang araw po sa inyo and thank you for joining us. So I would like to begin with presenting to you our editorial board and staff who
I'm
really
Dr. Carl
dedicated their
Balita.
time
I'm a
and
registered
effort
nurse.
for
I'm a registered midwife.
coming up with our latest issue on recovery and revitalization of education. Of course, this is led by our publisher, who is the mastermind, if I may say, for this endeavor, Dr. Carl Ibalita, my fellow editors from Sir EJ, Sir Cesar, Ma'am Vanessa, and Miss Joanne, who organized this event, to Sir Hermie, Direct Jack, Sir Mark Lester, our layout artist, Ma'am Aya Serverni, of course, Ma'am Elainer, Sir Von, and our esteemed board of reviewers from all over the world. We have, of course, Yusek Diosdado San Antonio. We have Dr. Engelbert C. Pasag from Pan Pacific University, Dr. Maria Cristina Robles from Navotas National High School, Dr. Luz Biminda Rilon, and we have Dr. Rowena Hibanada, Dr. Eduardo Malagapo, Miss Jennifer, Sir Mark, Joseph Poyawan, Dr. Bernardo Lunar, Dr. Belia, Dr. Manilyn, Dr. Emerson, Dr. Mignadel, Ms. Teresa, Mr. Erwin, Sir Dave, and Sir Jeffrey. So we would like to tell you that all the research papers that were published for our latest issue and even before our past issues were screened and were really studied and reviewed and checked by this panel of evaluators. So hindi lang po kami ng mga editors na from the editorial board. Instead, they subject it for peer review. All right? So allow me as well to mention what's the content of our latest issue through this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so our latest issue is revolving around the theme Recover and Revitalize Education through Research and Innovation, primarily because of the pandemic that we are still experiencing right now. Opo, may pandemya pa rin po. And syempre, the education sector is one of the sectors that are greatly hit, of course, by this health crisis. And so we come up with the idea, ano yung gagawin natin para patuloy po nating let's say, assist each other, like our educators, our parents included, our other stakeholders, syempre po, para po sa ating mga mag-aaral. That's why in the cover, you would see our learners really learning on their own, guided by their faculty or teacher na talaga namang pong ginagawa through home visitations. So this entire latest issue of Maestra is filled with strategies or best fit practices para po mabasa po ninyo at talagang evidence-based sa mga dapat po nating gawin so that we can move on in the ongoing pandemic na sana matatapos na and even post-pandemic. So just a few, kanina po may mga na-present po ng mga study. Those are just few of those studies na talaga naman pong kailangan nating basahin at kailangan nating gamitin yung mga resulta. So we have had environmental teaching and learning. We have had the program for our OFW parents na sa panahon po ngayon na pandemya, sino po ang nagbabantay at nag-guide sa ating mga mag-aaral sa kanilang mga tahanan. So these kinds of initiatives, of course, led by our educators, could actually be was the basis of our decisions and actions. At meron din po tayo sa school monitoring and evaluation in the digital era. This is the output of my student in our Carl Balita Executive Education Program at the Pan Pacific Graduate School. So yung mga nanonood po dito na ating mga graduate students, even if hindi pa po kayo tapos sa inyong thesis, if you have good outputs from your coursework sa iba't iba po ninyong academic courses or subjects, feel free to send them to us so that we can publish. Kasi po, this platform as envisioned by Dr. Carl Balita is wanting you to have an avenue for you to be able to cascade or to disseminate your best outputs po. And moving forward, of course, meron din po kaming latest issue or updates when it comes to our initiatives. We are conducting Research Congress every year. So lahat po ng mga na-publish sa latest issue na ito ay nanggaling sa aming Research Congress. And to our students who are listening right now, we would be conducting also a colloquium when it comes to action researches. So isa din po magandang pagkakataon ito para mapakinggan din natin ang ating mga estudyante kasi teachers are presenting how much more our students na as early as now dapat nahahasa na po sa pananaliksik. And also, we have other research articles that are being flashed right now. And I would like to focus on the development communication na siyempre si Mr. Gary Mosquito from Tacloban or from Leyte ay talaga naman din pong maraming innovations tong panahon po na nagsimula yung pandemya hanggang ngayon kung paano po nila tinuturuan and their learning continuity plan. So on that note, mga kasama, mga ka-maestra, we are inviting you to grab a copy of our latest issue. and that is on the recovery and revitalization of education. You can scan the QR code or you may visit the Google form. It is also being typed now via the chat box by our management team from Maestra Journal. Thank you, Ms. Jury. And also, if you wish still to go back and read our maiden issue that was in 2019, ang bilis nga po ng panahon, nabanggit ni Sir Vernie, na 3 years na po kami and we are happy that you are still with us and our community is growing. So this is our maiden issue in 2019. Yung nakalagay po sa aming cover ay si Sir Wendell Alvarez, the recent Global Prize awardee and international recognition to teachers, is from Bicol. Siya po yung pupunta sa mga kanayunan, sa mga isla para po magturo. He is an ALS teacher. So more likely, we are featuring inspiring teachers and also innovative teachers through our journal. And also, you can follow us on Facebook for updates kasi po sa Facebook po namin may mga learning resource din po tayo sa mga estudyante nandito kung paano ba mag-cite using the APA 7th edition, for example, or let's say how you come up with actual research. There are resources being posted once in a while. And so, on that note, on behalf of Dr. Carl Balita, our publisher, kasama po ang aking mga kasamang editor at mga, should I say, evaluators, maraming salamat po sa pagdalo. At sana po sa mga susunod na issue ng Maestra ay yung pangalan nyo na rin po ang inyong mabasa at ang inyong mga publication or articles ay ma-disseminate po natin. And for the succeeding launching, you will be presenting as well in this platform. Maraming salamat po. Sir Bernie.
Yes, that was Dr. Virgo C. Lopez, who's been with the Maestra Journal since day one. And we hope to be seeing your name, sasabi nga ni Sir Vino, that someday or probably within this year, as we actually within the year, we'll also have the Research Congress. So we'll be very happy to welcome you to look into your researches, your articles, and see if we could publish them in the Maestra Journal so that more and more teachers, more and more people from the education advocacy could read and learn from your researches and articles. So, yes, indeed, this was a very productive, a learning-rich session. We started out with Dr. Lorna's reminder that research could really help us improve in our practice and also ultimately improve the learning outcomes of our learners. And that was greatly exemplified by the researches presented by our research presenters earlier on how they implemented, tried different learning strategies in their respective institutions and how they will move forward using the data that they were able to collect, to test, and to analyze. So, yeah, congratulations everyone kasi ang dami nating baon from this session. So again, we would like to invite you soon. We will be posting an announcement about our research congress as we are committed na hindi lang sa isang event that we will continue to nurture and to promote the culture of research, but this will definitely be a crusade. Patuloy po natin gagawin to, and very soon we will also have the Research Congress. For updates, please do follow the Maestra Journal. For inquiries, update subscriptions, you can reach us through the Maestra Journal Facebook page or even through the Carl E. Balita public figure. Unfortunately, Dr. Carl E. Balita was not able to join us in this event, but for sure he is with us in spirit. No, the vision of having the Maestra Journal, the dream of having a publication for the teachers to publish their researches and share their best practices really came from Dr. Carl. And unfortunately lang, may mga engagements siya ngayon, but for sure, and he is very happy and is very proud that we've had yet another successful event for the Maestra Journal. And for those, yes, contributors will be given free copies of the Maestra Journal. Yeah, so you can reach out probably through the Facebook page of the Maestra Journal. or if you have been in touch with the Maestra Journal official email previously, please do email so that you could follow up with the copies of our latest issue where you have contributed. And then, yes. And then for those who might want to ask about the certificates, before we will give out the certificates, as you know, we are all advocates for change, for improvement. We also have this quick survey for you to fill out. Please do help us improve our events by filling out this survey. Ma'am Joanne, if we could share the link and the QR code. Yeah. And kasi committed tayo sa lifelong learning and continuous improvement. So that was our post-event evaluation for. So once you have completed answering that form, the team will be in touch with you for your certificates for attending this event. There. Thank you, Ma'am Jasmine. And once again, on behalf of the entire Maestra editorial board and our publisher, Dr. Carl E. Balita, a very, very strong advocate for education, we would like to thank everyone, and we would like to request then everyone to turn on your microphone camera for one photo op. Sir JR, if you could help us with our photo ops.
Okay, smile po. Smile lang po tayo. Smile lang po. One, two, three. Turn yung camera mo. One, two. Ako. One, two, three. Check tayo. One. Okay po. Okay po. Bernie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sir JR. And muli, on behalf of the entire Maestra Professional Journal Editorial Board, the Board of Reviewers, and our publisher, Dr. Carl E. Balita, we would like to thank you for joining us this morning. And we hope to see you again next time in another worthwhile event that nurtures and promotes research in education. Maraming salamat po. God bless.
Thank you, Sir Bernie. Sir JR, thank you. To the Pan Pacific University students, kindly take a screenshot for your proof of attendance. Salamat. Miss Marge, thank you.
Recording stopped.